A Science of Change, podcasting by Gil Crosby, social scientist, author, and organization development professional since 1984. So hi, this is Gil Crosby. Glad to be with you again. And today I have a very special guest, Jerome Maxwell, the former Managing Director of the Jamalco bauxite refinery in Jamaica, Clarendon, Jamaica, where I had the honor of working starting in 1999 up to through Jerome's retirement, which was 2021? Something like that, Jerome?
No, 2013.
2013? Is that possible? Yeah. That's a long time ago. So I guess I'm thinking of the Great Recession and mixing it up with the pandemic. So I remember the last time we did a retreat was during the recession still. And you had to figure out how to bring me in, not as a consultant. Anyway, just glad to have you here. And really, Jerome, you have been a blessing in my life. The work I did at Jamalco, brought me into Jamaica. I wouldn't be married to my wife if not for you.
That's good.
Yes, indeed. So I just, would love to hear from you about what you recall about deciding to bring my services to Jamalco to develop the organization. Anything you remember from those days that you'd be willing to share?
Okay, Gil. Well, let me start by saying that I got exposed to tough stuff when I was in human resources. The managing director at the time, Mike Gozel, had been exposed to it, and he asked me and two other employees to attend these sessions in Tennessee and determine whether it would be useful to implement it here at Jamalco at the time. So
right. Go ahead. Was it Dennis May? Was he one?
No. Actually, no. It was Adlai Robinson and Beresford Sherman. Somebody from maintenance, somebody from production.
Cool.
And the sessions were actually being run by Alcoans, who were trained by your dad. I can't remember their names right now. But it was 3 different sessions. So we had to fly in and attend the session and then go back and come back another week and then the third week. One of the unique things about this session in Tennessee, which actually is not unique for Jamalco at the time, but this was the first session they had at Tennessee that had both hourly employees and salaried employees in the session. We didn't know that, and I remember a discussion with one of the employees, and he was telling me how he was an hourly employee. I said, well, I would never have known if you didn't tell me, because I came in and everybody was the same to me. It didn't matter how you were being paid. So that was kind of a revelation for him, because I told him, we're at the Alcoa refinery where I go. We have hourly paid and monthly paid our salaried employees at the time in the same sessions all the time. So it's not a problem. There's no stigma about that.
And that was true of the first tough stuff I led for you. Whereas I'm still working on talking some of my customers into mixing hourly in with salaried.
Yeah, it's a very important thing to do, because you cut down all these communication barriers.
Yep.
So after that, Gil, we came back and we told the managing director, yes, we will definitely go ahead with it. And so we started, in fact, and we selected 2 employees. I know Fitzcarty was the first one of them. I don't remember who the second one was, to go and attend LEOS. That was a 2-year program. And I left shortly after that on an assignment in Point Comfort. Then when I came back, we picked it up a bit more. And it really got going when I became the managing director in 99. Yeah, 1999.
That's the year I arrived. And by the way, you were the first Jamaican managing director, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and thankfully there's now a second as of this year. The latest managing director is now a Jamaican, so I wish him all the best. I'm sure he'll do well.
Really? There's a second? I thought it was Brazilian.
No. He's a Jamaican. The one that was there before, Austin Mooney, who is an American, he has
Right.
he, he has moved on from that job, and the new appointee is a Jamaican. He has worked in Brazil, he's worked in Ghana, he's worked in all over, but he has a lot of experience, so he has a very good resume.
I didn't realize he was Jamaican. That's great.
Oh yeah. So what happened is that I think I got a very good I call the word indoctrination to the job, because Mike Goza basically made me do and make all the decisions the last 3 or so months before he left. So I knew everything that was happening at the time. And it's a kind of a shock when you're the one who has the last decision in everything. After being in there for so many years. And so I sat down and I said to myself, I can't understand why I am the only one who seems to be worried about what's happening here. So I decided we would start with some very high-level metrics that we would put with lights for the employees and so on. And I used to watch the behavior, when they came in. If the lights were on, that meant we did well, and everybody kind of ran into the refinery. If they came in and the lights were red, everybody's shoulders drooped and they dragged themselves in. So I said, okay, well, the behavior is there. And then I started to get calls from the community who before was very antagonistic, but now they're calling and say, what can we do to help you to get the lights on? And I said, well, this is a big change. And so after a while, I realized that at this high level, it was not really, people didn't understand why we didn't get a red light or why we got a red light or a green light, and other than, say, production or safety, the rest of them was kind of out of their understanding. And so we said, okay, although we're doing tough stuff and they're starting to communicate with each other and trying to deal with this, I think I called you about triangulation because I've realized that everybody who had a problem would come to me to resolve it instead of resolving it themselves between themselves. And so I think that was the time we had a discussion around how to deal with this triangulation. And
I still use you, Jerome, as an example of having like the head of production and the head of engineering both triangulating about each other and driving you crazy, and then figuring out how to get them to talk to each other instead.
Yes, and the amazing thing is their offices were right across from each other.
Yes, yes.
And they'd walk past their office, come to me, complain, and then go back, and the other one would do the same, and I'd say, hey, why don't the two of you just stop in each other's office and talk for a moment? So that was very an interesting thing, which we finally got working. And I think one of the challenges is when I did these managing director sessions, is that I realized that we had all been brainwashed into technical terms. And by that, what I mean is, they say, well, what's the problem at the plant? And they'd say, well, we're having clarities in clarification, for example. And in one of the sessions, I asked one of the employees, do you know what clarities is? And he says, I have no idea, sir, but that's the problem. So I guess they will figure out how to fix it. I said, no. Actually, all of us have to fix this. But let me try and give you an idea. The clarities, and I give him a simple example. I said, take a glass of water, throw some earth in it, and after a while, what do you see? And he said, well, some of the material will go to the bottom of the glass, and then you'll have different colors of water all the way up. And I said, that's right. I said, that's clarities. Actually, what we want is to take the cleanest piece of that water. That's our liquor. And we're going to decant it off in the launder. And it will go to the filter, which will filter out the solids, and it will go a clear liquid across. He said, oh. I said, yeah, so what happens is when it's a clarities, what's coming over is very dirty, and the filters are struggling to clean it. And you know what causes that? It's because the bauxite that's coming through, the flocculant we have, can't treat it properly. So it starts from the bauxite guys. So they have to do a better job of getting it down to the refinery, and the guys who are feeding it into the plant have to realize it's very important how they do the mix. So they said, okay, all right. So I said, there are a number of people that can fix clarities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he started to realize that asking them the questions, they would start to understand a little bit more and how they could impact their operations. That's when I started with trying to get the management team on the same, how would I call it, to have the same vision, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because I sat down and said to myself, I've attended so many management courses, and they all say in this course that you have the big V, and everybody's little v has to get into the big V for it to be a success. So I said, right. But in none of these courses, they tell you how the little v gets into the big V. I don't know if you realize that, Gil, but none of these management courses actually do that. They don't tell you how to get the little v into the big V.
Mm-hmm. Or even to also have the little V's help you create the big V.
Right. So we worked on getting a big V. So we got a group of them together, cross-section across the refinery and on the mines, etc., all the locations. In there in a room, and we worked out, it was off-site actually, and we worked out what was going to be the vision for our company. And out of that, we came out with, Alcoa had their values, so we all had to use them. But out of that, we added a value that Alcoa didn't have, which was urgency. And the reason for that is our culture, we're kind of laid back.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized that, hey, our operations from a cost curve, we're not in a good position. We're in the quintile. We should really be in the second quintile, not the fifth. Those in the fifth don't last very long. So,
right, and I remember you showing that on a flip chart to employ all the employees over time and at some of the events.
Yes, and I showed them how we were going to work our way down to get to number 2. We didn't think we were at the time we could get to number 1, but we said the first goal is get to number 2 first, then we figure out number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were all sitting there and figuring out, how are we going to do this? And we said, okay, I'm going to start first with the management retreats. I'll get all of them on the same page. So they'd all come with their plan for the year, and they all did it individually in a silo. I made them put them up on flip charts. You were there, Matt, helping us to coordinate this.
Yeah, I appreciated those retreats, but you turned them into working sessions instead of just, having it be an endless drone of reports.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a waste of time.
Yes.
So
you'd be amazed how often that goes on, Jerome.
So we said, okay, we made them show what their plan was, and everybody would critique it and say, well, you can't do that because that's going to mess me up. And then I said, oh, this is working really nice. Now they kind of understand that they're not operating on their own. We're all interlinked here.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming out of that session, we had a management team focused on this was the plan and these were the activities we were going to do to achieve it. And so we said, okay, we're really going someplace now. But after that, go ahead.
Part of what happened in those sessions was they had to get clear about what they wanted from each other and have conversations about how to meet other groups' needs and how to get their own needs met. And so it became a very cross-functional conversation.
That's correct.
And you repeated those at least once a year for many years.
Yes, we did it every year.
Mm-hmm.
Especially so that we had the plan for the following year was formulated with everybody's input and they understood how we're going to get there. It's very important. It's very important.
A lot of people think they don't have time for that.
Oh, it's the most important time you ever spent because you see, one of the challenges you had was that when I started out, everybody would create these beautiful plans. They'd be put in a kind of a booklet form. Mm-hmm. And after it was presented and accepted by the corporate group, that was the last time we saw the plan. The plan was kind of put in a drawer and we just ran from day to day on it. No, that couldn't work. We have a plan. We need to make sure we're going to execute it and achieve it. And so the important thing was that the plan had to be a living document. So we moved from that, Gil, to I think what you call it is the tippy. I wanted the entire cross-section from all departments, everybody. We had about between 80 and 100 of them. Pull them out. We couldn't leave the refinery, so we had them in this room.
I remember it well.
They put up everything. And this is the first time some of our operators and mechanics and so on realize the impact they have on what we are doing. Uh-huh. And I just watched this evolve and say to myself, why didn't we do this long ago? You know? So they went through and they had these.
Yep, because those mechanics
put on and they'd all go through. That was probably the best 5 days we spent in many years. As when they left there, we had, it was 100, so it was about 1/6 of the workforce who knew exactly what we had to do for achieving.
A bunch of the hourly workers actually had actions.
Oh, yeah.
That they were leading.
We gave everybody an action because nobody was going to come out there without not having something to do to achieve it. So it was fantastic. And so we said, okay, all right, what we need to do now is to link this in each crew. We're going to show how we're going to show this to the workforce in each area on a regular basis. And that's when we extended the Alcoa business system, where they would put up the charts and they would measure everything and put it up there, and they would see how each department and everybody is doing. The greatest part of what happened, Gil, is when I assigned the financial business advisors to the different little crews, you know, so that the little crew had their budget and they had to achieve it. And, you know, I remember this one's very important for me because it always stuck in my mind, where the crew that cleaned the heaters and overhauled them, etc., they met with their business advisor. And he came in and said, oh, you guys are above plan. And they said, what? No. We're on plan. We did everything that we're supposed to do, on time, on schedule, everything. And he said, no, you're above plan. And they said, how? And they said, well, how many of these gaskets do you need when you overhaul a filter? They said, 1. They said, when you went to the stores and pulled 4. They said, what? They said, yes. They pulled 4. So where are the other 3? Oh, they say it's probably hanging up there in the building. Probably, and he says, well, that means that they're in the sun and they're getting wet with rain and they're destroyed, so we've lost those 3. I said, no, they're still in good shape, but can we return them to the stores? And this brought up a new thing because we've never had any part returned to the stores for credit. and I said to myself, oh, we're gonna have to do something about this. So they went in and we got the stores to figure out how they were going to do this and put it in the system, and they got a credit back, so they were on budget. And
Nice.
these guys now had a complete new vision of what they were doing because they realized that the whole practice of pulling 4 to replace 1 made no sense. And so,
it's like they were afraid in the past that if they didn't pull as many as they could, they'd run out someday or something.
Oh, yes. And that was a fear that they had also, all across. And so, can you imagine this when you put this right across? All the crews have their own business advisor, and they meet once a week or something, and they go through their budget. And so they're starting to really make a big difference to the operations. In fact, I had a meeting where we had a family day or something, and one of the guys' wives came to me and said, Mr. Maxwell, I did a tour of your refinery. I said, yes, how do you think? She says, what do you do with my husband to make him keep it that clean? Because he never keeps our garage or anywhere else that I said, well, the problem you're facing is he spends most of his life awake here, so he keeps it clean. Probably you need to emphasize it now that you have seen what he can achieve to make him do it at home. So, that's amazing, the difference. And as we moved along, as we came down the curve, because once you got down the curve and you started to bring in all these financial measures.
Right, and actually explain them and educate the entire workforce
as to what each one meant and how we calculated it.
Yep.
Because I never forgot the first time I asked one of the financial guys to explain one of these measures, and by the time he was through, even I was lost. And I said to him, how are we going to explain this to the workforce? Because you have lost me long ago. And so we had to break it down into simple language. Everything. Everything had to be simple so that everybody could understand it. Not that the people were stupid or anything. It's just that with these technical terms that people use in whatever, whether it's accounting or chemical engineering or whichever one, they take it as a given, whereas other people don't even have a clue what they're talking about.
Often I find that when I ask what a term means, many of the people in the room, like management people, don't know, but they're all just sitting there as if they know.
That's right. That's very right.
Like they don't want to be embarrassed by admitting that they don't know what, or they're using the same acronym to mean two different things.
Yes.
Jerome, there's two things from that time that I'm recalling that I thought were important. And so one was like during the Tippy, also like you were trying to reduce raw material loss.
Yes.
And so it was the hourly workers who really took that and ran with it. And what was the substance that you were losing? It started with an F, didn't it?
No, it was actually the caustic loss.
Caustic, yes. And so that was just a matter really of them identifying and fixing leaks and so on throughout the system.
Well, it was that plus more, Gil, because what happens is in precipitation, when these guys clean the tanks, they use a lot of caustic. And so it was very important that they pump it off when we can take the caustic into the plant, because we're a continuous flow plant. So, these guys would do it at their convenience. So, okay, we're finished with this. Let's pump off that tank tonight. No, you can't pump it off because we can't accept so much caustic in the system tonight. That's the problem.
Okay.
Or, the guys who are operating in clarification, we need to work the system so that we can bring back the the caustic from out of the lake and convert it, the liquid caustic, and
Mm-hmm.
convert it and bring that caustic back into the plant. Besides all the leaks and the various other things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, there was a lot of different actions that had to happen. But a
Right, and
lot
there
of
were, engineers mixed with hourly and so on, all thinking together in that process.
That's right. Because they all had to understand what was happening and their impact on it. And then we had to eventually had a coordinator who, when they wanted to do something, they'd call this person and the person would say, nope, can't do it now, but give me 3 hours and you can do it or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had to make sure that they all understood that you can't just do that because we're losing a lot of money by losing all this caustic, and we had to replenish it with fresh caustic. We didn't want to do that.
Right. I think you ended up saving millions of dollars a year.
We saved a lot of money there with millions of dollars in caustic loss. We got ourselves more efficient on yield and in precipitation, which brought down made our energy efficiency much better.
Mm-hmm.
Both in digestion and so on. Because you see, once you can control your caustic, then there's a measure they call the TCTA. If you can get that as high as possible, then you get a lot more yield. So it works. And that's why we were able to get the expansion. We earned the expansion by the work that our workforce did. And so
Right.
it was really a reward for them.
That's great, because that might be why Jamalco is still there today, is that there's been so much investment. It's from a financial perspective, it's a good asset.
It's an excellent asset. The key thing is they have the bauxite there, they have the refinery, and it's in a location where shipping is not that bad. I mean, you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about competing with an operation in Australia that has to ship all the way to Canada. The cost of the shipping is much higher than shipping from Jamaica to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So you're perfectly located. Plus, on top of it, there are these trade agreements with Europe and Canada that we don't have any tariffs. So it makes a big difference in terms of how you compete. You're not just competing alone on the cost that you produce at, but it's the delivered cost to the customer that's important. So it makes a big difference. Plus, on top of that, you have to add the quality of the product. You don't want to send something that's going to plug up the smelters, etc.
So you did two things, Jerome, that I thought were remarkable in my experience. One is you gave me a lot of freedom. So I was able to, more than any place I've ever worked, I could walk around that bauxite refinery. I had all the equipment. I could just find where people were stuck in conflict and work with. I eventually worked with every team on that site, just like I kept working with you and your lead team. But so you just were a great sponsor of and with trusting that it was helping. But another thing that you did was you'd go stand out under that tree near the cafeteria and you would just talk to people.
Yes, well, that's how you know what's the pulse of the refinery. You have to know the workforce. That was a key thing for me. As I keep telling the leaders in the organization, you have to be observant. You walk in the administrative building, the first person you see is that guard there.
Uh-huh.
I said, how many people come in here and say good morning to that guard? Ask them how they were doing, how was the night, etc. First find out something. Once I came into the building and I saw this guy, he was so distraught. I could tell from the behavior, his body language. I learned that in tough stuff. And I went over to him and said, hey, what's happened? And that's when he told me the awful news that, he left work, went home, and his wife was ill, and he took her to the hospital, and it was so unfortunate, a very tragic situation, but she passed away that night.
Wow.
And here's this guy in his outfit to work, coming this morning to come and work. I said, what are you coming to do? He says he's coming to work. I said, no, you're not going to work today. There's no way you're going to work today. I said, secondly, I will tell you about your supervisor, he ain't coming. But secondly, I needed to go down to our human resources department and start to discuss this thing with them. Because they are here to help you and make sure you can get through this tragedy. Okay, not only mentally and physically, but also financially. So go down there and let me take you down there. So, it's a matter of seeing them and talking with them and finding out what's happening. You know whether what they're having. You tend to get an idea. These people, their child is ill or something. You have to know more about each person and what's happening. It's not an easy job because you have over 600 employees, but
right,
you do your best to get around and know what's going on.
You were disciplined about getting out where people could actually talk to you and relating, and I always thought like the building one where your office was, getting in there and then going down that hallway. I just imagined if I were an hourly worker and I had never really spent time talking to you, it was sort of like going down to visit the Wizard of Oz. That was a long hallway, and I could just imagine getting more scared with each step. So the fact that you would get out and just hang out where they could easily find you under that tree there by the cafeteria was worth a lot. And it's a lesson that a lot of leaders, they really struggle with figuring out how to connect to people. And part of it's just that you were consistent.
Well, yes, because what happened is I would tell my admin assistant, let's say I have a meeting in the refinery at the digestion department. So I leave the office and I'm going to walk there. I'm not driving, I walk there. And then after the meeting, I'm going to walk back. So I would tell her, for example, the meeting is at, say, 9 a.m. and it's going to last about an hour. It's 10. Don't schedule anything for me until about 10:30, 10:45. So she says, why? I said, because I'm going to walk back and I'm going to talk to everybody on the way back. And she finally figured it out because she said the meeting is 9 and I said, okay, I'm leaving now. And I would leave about 45 minutes before the meeting and I'd walk over there because I know I'm going to meet a lot of people on the way and they're going to want to talk to me about something. And I'm not going to just say, look, call my admin and arrange a time. No, I'll talk to them there. And if it's taking longer, then I said to them, I'll tell you what, I have to go to this meeting, unfortunately, but I will come and get back to you this evening. And we finish, okay? And so I know I'm going to meet a lot of people on the way down, and they'll have some issue. It could be personal, it could be around the refinery, it could be something. But you have to at least give them an ear and hear what they're talking about and see if you can help them solve the problem.
Certainly, if you are trying to lead and you want people to follow, you have to have those. Enough of them need to know you, and have a positive experience. So, and again, this is just a lesson that it's most people ignore. They're time their day so tight that when they do walk up to people, they basically either just say hi and keep going, or they don't even say hi. They're in such a hurry.
That's true.
And it's actually worse if you're just blowing past people and preoccupied.
You don't want to walk past them as if they're not there. And
right.
So you have to acknowledge them. And it doesn't matter who it is. They're one of your employees. It doesn't matter what level they're at. You need to be able to sit with them, relate to them, and talk to them. So that's important, very important.
Yep, and even your retreats, Jerome. I mean, I wish I could bottle all this stuff because the retreats gave the lead team a chance to just sit and talk in the evenings and, have unscheduled time And then I remember the first retreat I was at least, which was probably the first retreat. We also all got up on stage and sang jamming. Yeah, so we weren't just doing business the whole time, and
That's right.
that was pretty
You had
important.
to mix a
I
little,
thought
you
that
had
was
to mix a
important.
little pleasure with it. You had to mix a little
Yep.
pleasure with it. There was one of them we had where we had all of a sudden these guys got up and started singing Shaggy's songs and all these kind of things in groups. And I thought it was amazing, but they all had a good time.
Yep. Helps build something that can't be built any other way. So, well, look, hey, I know you have to take care of your wife, get her to an appointment, and so we only have so much time. I've covered most of what I intended to cover. I sure loved working for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, it was a pleasure working with you, Gil, and we the key thing about it is we could see the results as we moved along little by little, and we all learned what we needed to do as the next step. A key thing for me was the workforce development, because you had the employees and you had to give them an opportunity to learn. And
Yep.
so you have, besides the tough stuff and so on, you had to teach them the different aspects of the operation, how to do certain things, etc., properly, etc. So,
I remember the literacy effort also that was going on when I first got there, and how proud some of the people were that they were learning to read.
Yes, well, unfortunately, during the original employment days way back, there were a lot of loopholes in the employment. And I closed most of those when I was in HR. But the challenge you had was that you had employees who were already there for years.
Even managers or supervisors who had very
supervisors.
Yeah, right.
And so one of the things we did was we did a little test, and we found out we did it initially on the hourly paid, then we did it on the salaried. We found that the educational level was very low with a number of them. Some of them were about okay, etc. That's one. The second thing we found out is that we needed to talk to our PR people, our communications people. They were putting out notices and memos at a grade 12 level. And I called them in and we said, do you know what grade level the newspapers write at? And they said, no. I said, it's grade 7. So we need to break down our information to a grade 7 level, okay? So that everybody gets an idea and understands it. We're not going to put all these words in there that are above grade 7. Secondly, we're not going to run some sessions to get the rest of the workforce that's below grade 7 up to grade 7 and above. So we had to go and get special teachers because you don't want a teacher to come in and talk to this adult and talk down to them, because then you're just going to get them all pissed off. So we had to get special teachers. And we got rid of a couple initially, but we finally found some that could do the job, and they did an excellent job. And at a graduation, one of the employees said his daughter used to come to him for him to help her with her homework. And he would always say, oh, I don't have time for that, go to your mother. After he was in the course for some time, he saw the daughter come to him with something, and he said, all right, come, let me help you with this. And he said, I had learned how to do this in my course here. And so I could now help my daughter, and I was so proud. His self-esteem was so high that he just almost cried because he said this. Yeah,
I love stories like that.
It was fascinating. And after we got our people up to date, then we said, all right, let's work with the community. So we stretched it out into the community. But, there was a stigma about the government program. that was run for years. So we changed it because so we called it, everybody always wanted to have a skills center for them to learn skills. So we said, no, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is first, we're going to learn documentation skills. And that's just basically getting them to be literate in what they're doing. And it had a different trend to it too, Gil. It wasn't that you just learn how to do addition and subtraction and so on. We taught them how to read, say, a measuring tape or other things that they do when they're doing their job. Because
job-related skills. Job-related
skills, yeah. In the documentation skills. So that by the time they were ready to go to demonstrated skills, they were well on the way. But, one of the things is, I don't think people realize it, but you have a person who is not educated, but he's probably the best carpenter you could ever find. And he can't read the measuring tape, but he will take the measuring tape and he'll measure it. And then he'll cut the thing and it will be perfect. And you'll say, how did he do it? He didn't measure it. He couldn't read it. And what they didn't realize is that he just took the same length and cut it at that with the tape. He didn't know how to read it, but he got the length right. And so it's one of these fascinating things because you go to the market in Jamaica and the person that is selling you the fruits or whatever you're going to buy probably can't even add and subtract well. They're not probably literate. But they always give it the right change. You ever figure that out?
They know how to count the money.
They know how to count the money.
It's a life skill.
But they don't know how to say 1 and 1 equals 2.
Sure.
So that's one of the fascinating things that we learn as we go along.
Well, speaking of learning, then you also sponsored many Tough Stuffs, which is our, T group learning. About half the people in the organization went through that type of learning, and Jamalco still sends people to my workshops, right? 25 years later, they're still using that to develop people. And you always would come in and kick those off. And again, your presence, I still use it as an example. So you'd say, well, I can turn off my cell phone, even though, people were trying to reach me from corporate or whatever, my boss, I'm going to turn mine off. You can turn yours off. You just had a great way of kicking those off. And you sent people through the 2-year program, the whole accelerated leadership and Leo's degrees. So your commitment was outstanding to developing the people in the organization so you could get business results. You're a role model as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know I was a role model, but we were just trying to get ourselves into a position so that we could compete globally.
Yeah. You're a role model as a person too, Jerome. So we got to wrap up here. Are you still available to managing directors and CEOs and such as an advisor?
I can do it. I don't think, I guess if they want to contact me, I'll do my best. But most of the time, they kind of do their own thing.
I understand. It's easy when you get to a position that high to think that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, they want to take it to the next level. So that's their job. And
sure.
As I've said to my children and everybody else, I'll give you advice. You don't have to take it. You'll find out eventually whether it was good or not. But if somebody wanted to contact me, I would try and make myself available.
Cool. And so last thing, this conversation inspires me once again to imagine the two of us at like the Jamaican Employers Federation conference in 2025. Talking about what you did to develop the workforce. So I may keep pestering you to try to get you there.
Okay, I hear you. I see if we can work that out.
Okay, cool. They have to agree too, of course, but I'm sure they would.
Well, we'll see.
All right, Jerome.
Great talking with you, Gil. I'm going back.
Great talking to you. Okay, thanks. You too. Take care. Hey, I appreciate you listening. This, again, is Gil Crosby. And I want you to take advantage of what's available to you. I have many free materials. I am happy to talk to people about their situations, especially if you're trying to create change, either social change or organization change. We have frequent workshops that are available, T group workshops. If you have never been in a T group with us, then don't miss it in your life. It's many people have said to me, of all the trainings I've ever received, I got this one 30 years ago and it's the only one that stuck with me. You're learning from your actual interactions with the other participants and with the faculty. The faculty are walking the same talk that they're teaching of behavioral skills. It's a training workshop. That's what the T stands for. This is done in the spirit of the creation of T groups by Kurt Lewin and his associates. It's for groups. It's for teams. That's how it was originally designed. It is a opportunity to learn about theory and put it directly into practice. Again, the original design, you learn things and then you put them into practice. It was not just all ambiguity, which is how some T groups, most are led today, where the faculty hardly says anything. That's not how this is designed. So join us for that. There's always workshops. There's the Leadership Institute of Seattle, which has certificate programs, a two-year program where you will learn from T groups and learn how to do all the organization development work that my father designed, most of it, and I continue that practice alongside my brother Chris and many other associates. So don't be a stranger. There's a lot going on. It's always changing. So be in touch, and it's on the website, crosbyod.com. I look forward to working with you in your organization or as you pursue things like reducing gun violence and decreasing racism in our society. Whatever your goals are, the social science of Kurt Lewin guides how to achieve those goals in a reliable way. And so that's what I apply and practice every day and invite you to.